Lord have mercy. I wasn't sure if I was going to come on. Shout out to everybody that's coming in. I won't be live for too long because I got stuff to do here with Baby Bunny, and I'm not really feeling the best right now. Um, Yo, I thought this was clickbait. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. But did y'all see this? It's literally released about 45 minutes ago. Presumed human remains found recovered from the Titan submersible wreckage. Let's watch.
We are following some breaking news at the moment. The U.S. Coast Guard has just said presumed human remains were recovered from the Titan submersible wreckage. News Nation's Evan Lambert is following the latest. Evan, this just dropped from the Coast Guard. What do we know here?
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, Blake, so we got this update from the Coast Guard about 25 minutes ago. As you said, quote, presumed human remains, they say, were found among some of the wreckage of the Titan submersible. We had seen pictures of the submersible wreckage today in Canada, offloaded onto shore in Newfoundland, Canada. And now we know, according to the Coast Guard, that human remains were among some of that wreckage. I want to put up the statement, the relevant portion of the statement from the Coast Guard. It says, in part, quote, United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains that have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident. And we do have some of the pictures of the pieces of wreckage offloaded today from a ship in Canada. You can see what appears to be the nose cone, the front of the submersible that surrounds the area that would have been the porthole, also a twisted piece of the hull.
Listen. I am not a scientist. When I started talking about this story, along with everybody else, I let y'all know I'm really ignorant as it pertains to these kind of topics, right? I was calling this thing a submarine when it's a submersible. Come to find out, these are two different kinds of, things. I'm under the impression that if something implodes, that like, isn't this too intact? Like, I'm thinking implosion. We don't even have, like, the cables are connected to this thing still. Anybody feel like, is it just me? I can't believe they found any form of remains. I know, Fancy, whack. I'm asking the same question. So did it implode? Did it not implode? How do we have human remains? She said it could be small pieces of human remains. I don't know. I never thought remains would be found. Are they able to identify these? Like, how you gonna provide receipts or receipts? I don't know how you provide receipts for this. That is crazy. Me too. I pray that they're able to find at least some of each, because right. I mean, at least to verify whose pieces they are. Like, what? I hate, like, I tell you, I'm so ignorant to this topic. I don't feel like I'm like I don't even know how to ask the questions. But when they're pulling these big pieces, and now we're finding out that there's actual human remains
And some wires,
like, that's
potentially
crazy.
maybe the controls or a portion of the controls of that submersible. But again, really just within the last 20 to 30 minutes, some information that families likely have been waiting on, that human remains were discovered. We had heard from the Coast Guard that they would be especially careful in trying to find that wreckage, to be aware of any remains that were to be found. But we now know that the remains, along with the evidence, will be transported on a U.S. Coast Guard cutter from Canada to the U.S. to be part of this investigation. It's also likely that officials will try to identify the remains. No information about to whom those remains belong, but obviously families likely were waiting for some amount of information regarding their loved ones and any remains that could be recovered. The Coast Guard saying that they did so today. Blake.
Wow, incredible. All right, Evan Lambert live for us in Washington. Evan, thank you.
Thank you for watching.
So I guess the Coast Guard is, let's go to the Coast Guard on Twitter. I don't know if they posted something on Twitter or anything like that, or where they got this information from. I don't see anything on Twitter. So for those that are just coming in, I know everybody's like, wow. I feel the same way. Implosion means it crushed itself and remains largely intact. Okay. I'm just a little like surprised, like they actually found human remains. For those that are coming in, I guess this is what's being reported, and I initially thought this has to be a lie, but you have CBC, excuse me, reporting that the remains were carefully recovered from the site, almost 700 kilometers off the coast of St. John. St. John, the Coast Guard said in a news release on Wednesday evening. So the evidence will provide investigators from several international jurisdictions with critical insight into the cause of this tragedy. And there is still substantial amount of work to be done to understand the factors that led to the catastrophic loss. My goodness. Thank you so much, Crazy Cat Mama, for the $49.99. Thank you. Hey, Blink Screen. Hey, everybody. And sorry, I didn't greet everybody because I was like just thinking. So Daily Mail's on it too. Wim says there may be some pieces and the rest is pink mist. Oh my God. I mean, they're going to need somebody like forensics to collect this stuff. Like, that's just, you can give it to her. That's just crazy, yo. That is so crazy. Let me go back, replay for those that are coming in, and I'm going to see if I can find anybody else reporting on this. Let me pull that Daily Mail as well as Chico recommended.
We are following some breaking news at the moment. The U.S. Coast Guard has just said presumed human remains were recovered from the Titan submersible wreckage. News Nation's Evan Lambert is following the latest. Evan, this just dropped from the Coast Guard. What do we know here?
Yeah, Blake, so we got this update from the Coast Guard about 25 minutes ago. As you said, quote, presumed human remains, they say, were found among some of the wreckage of the Titan submersible. We had seen pictures of the submersible wreckage today in Canada, offloaded onto shore in Newfoundland, Canada. And now we know, according to the Coast Guard, that human remains were among some of that wreckage. I want to put up the statement, the relevant portion of the statement from the Coast Guard. It says, in part, quote, United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains that have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident.
Okay, good.
And we do have some of the pictures of the pieces of wreckage offloaded today from a ship in Canada. You can see.
Here's the thing, though. If it's, and that's a good question, SW. My question is this, and I don't know how y'all feel about this. You guys let me know, but like, you know, they're using the word presumed to put something like that out to them. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at this point. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to these stories, what people put out, and, you know, what is fact and what isn't. But it truly, to say something like this and then like, this is something that you can take back anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I cannot believe that they are pumping this for 5 human foot. Many people died on the. Yes, they did. Exactly, Ithaca. There was a lot more people that died, and this one got more coverage. You're right on that one too, and I completely agree with you on that one. But it's like, what are the chances? I'm just saying, like, what presume says a lot. They're not really identifiable as being an intact human body. So could it also be something else? I'm curious, and the Daily Mail is on it as well. U.S. Coast Guard says presumed human remains may have been found in the wreckage of the Titan sub recovered from 12,500 feet below the Atlantic surface. Now, thank you so much, Cash, for the $9.99. Thank you again, Crazy Cat Mama. Nada says, I don't think the Coast Guard would say it if it wasn't true. I don't know, Nada. See, the thing is, I don't put anything past anybody at this point because they believe that the implosion happened the day that they left, which was that Sunday, right? And then they had everybody searching like crazy. The force would be equal to 50 pounds of TNT in this small space. Wow, that's interesting. Let's be honest. They would know if it was human remains without stating that as a fact. I'm just saying. I'm saying. Does this mean that it didn't really implode but fall apart in the middle and it just disintegrated? Absolutely. Tinkle says presume pink miss aka found but not ID'd. All the resources for this when they knew from the beginning that they were no Bex, I'm on you that one. I agree. Sorry, y'all, I'm holding my makeup brush. I agree with that one right there. There were so many resources, yet you have another ship over here with so many deaths that are happening. I completely agree. They didn't say body parts. They said remains. They believe remains. That's what they said. Hold up. Let's go back to that piece right here. Human remains, which I think for a lot of us, we're like, well, what does that mean? It could mean a lot. Pink mist, somebody said.
Breaking news at the moment. The U.S. Coast Guard has just
It's
said
horrible.
presumed human remains were recovered from the Titan submersible wreckage. News Nation's Evan Lambert is following the latest. Evan, this just dropped from the Coast Guard.
Wow.
What do we know here?
Yeah, Blake, so we got this update from the Coast Guard about 25 minutes ago. As you said, quote, presumed human remains, they say, were found among some of the wreckage of the Titan submersible. We had seen pictures of the submersible wreckage today in Canada, offloaded onto shore in Newfoundland, Canada. And now we know, according to the Coast Guard, that human remains were among some of that wreckage. I want to put up the statement, the relevant portion of the statement from the Coast Guard. It says, in part, quote, United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains that have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident. And we do have some of the pictures of the pieces of wreckage offloaded today from a ship in Canada. You can see what appears to be the nose cone, the front of the submersible that surrounds the area that would have been the porthole, also a twisted piece of the hull and some wires, potentially maybe the controls or portion of the controls of that submersible. But again, really just within the last 20 to 30 minutes, some information that families likely have been waiting on, that human...
You know what? You know what, though? One of the questions, and again, like this completely changes my mind about implosions and what that looked like, because I feel like maybe some of us had this idea of what that would look like. The idea that they would even have that this thing would be intact, because I would imagine that this wasn't intact anymore, or that the possibility of any human remains being found. That in itself is just crazy to me. Thank you, Chico. Please hit that like button. Thank you. It would have only been bones. According to the scientists, their bodies would have melted, said Celeste. So the impact, just like Wim said, the TNT impact of it, but something was found. Like, that is the crazy part.
Remains were discovered. We had heard from the Coast Guard that they would be especially careful in trying to find that wreckage, to be aware of any remains that were to be found. But we now know that the remains, along with the evidence, will be transported on a U.S. Coast Guard cutter from Canada to the U.S. to be part of this investigation. It's also likely that officials will try to identify the remains. No information about to whom those remains belong. But obviously, families likely were waiting for some amount of information regarding their loved ones and any remains that could be recovered. The Coast Guard saying that they did.
Are you? Let me tell you. Let me show you what everybody else is reporting as well. Okay, I'm just wondering, would there be anything like human, like DNA? Like, are they able to tell? I'm assuming. Is it enough to say that this belongs to this person?
First images have been published of the wreckage of the Titan. That's the submersible that imploded on a deep dive in the North Atlantic with the loss of 5 lives. US Coast Guard say that the submersible's landing frame and a rear cover were found in the debris.
Wow.
The vessel imploded on the 18th of June, a short time after starting its descent to the wreck of the Titanic on the seabed. Our science correspondent, Jonathan Amos, has more details.
A somber moment at quayside as the debris from the Titan submersible was unloaded. Ship workers attempted to cover the fragments, but some pieces were still clearly identifiable. A titanium end cap from the cylinder-shaped carbon fibre sub with a large hole where a viewing window was once positioned. the rear equipment bay, thrown clear in the violent implosion that occurred nearly 4 kilometres down. And the landing frame the sub used to sit on a flat surface.
Oh my
The
gosh.
question now is whether investigators have enough material to reconstruct what happened.
I think the key parts to look at are the interface between the acrylic window and the titanium hemispherical domes, the end caps, and also the area where the carbon fiber would have been bonded to the titanium flanges. So I could see from the footage that both of those components were recovered, which is as much as we can hope for.
Seeing the debris come ashore will have been a painful sight for the families of the 5 men who died.
Wow.
British explorer Hamish Harding, the British-Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman. All perished, along with French diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet and Stockton Rush, the CEO of Oceangate. Recent days have seen concerns highlighted about whether the sub was built to the best standards and with sufficient testing. These are all issues now that the US and Canadian authorities will probe as they examine the debris. Somewhere in this tangled mess may be clues to what went so tragically wrong. Jonathan Amos, BBC News.
Wow. What do you guys think about all of this? Let me go back a little bit. Hold up. There's another one here
coming into us in just the last
this
couple
is
of minutes
crazy.
here, because we are hearing from the Coast Guard in an official statement saying they have recovered what they described as human remains from that Titan mini-sub wreckage. Medical experts are set to conduct an analysis in the next few days. It comes as we're getting the first look at some of the pieces from that catastrophic implosion. Look at this. You can see it here. Pieces of steel, chunks of metal, what looks like electrical wires being lifted off the ship at a Canadian Coast Guard pier up in St. John's.
Where do you think, with all this, like, where would they have found these human remains? That is the crazy part. And then the Coast Guard put that up there. Recovers presumed human remains from Titan debris. I know. Oh my goodness, y'all. I'm just wondering. It could be possible the person who maybe was furthest from the implosion could have maybe took less impact than the rest. That's possible, right? Okay, Mama, that is very possible. And I mean, oh my goodness.
These pieces were found by an ROV, a remote operated vehicle. It's been on the ocean floor looking for any wreckage like this. Investigators hope this will provide some clues as to what happened before this sub imploded, killing, of course, all 5 people who were on board. Ron Allen is joining us now. Ron, what else are we hearing from the Coast Guard tonight?
Well, it's surprising that they're saying that there are these presumed human remains that were found along with the other debris there on the ocean floor. Back last week when this was all happening, they described this catastrophic implosion as so violent at such depths that it was unlikely that there would be anything recovered, let alone any sign of human remains of the 5 who perished in this accident. So that's really startling that they have announced this just a few moments ago. So that, along with the other debris here that's been pulled up by the salvage company, is headed to investigators as they try to figure out what caused this to happen. As you know, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of criticism of the company, Oceangate, the CEO, Stockton Rush, the pilot, who also died on this voyage on the submersible, because this craft had not been independently certified, safety certified by any of the maritime agencies that do that sort of thing.
My goodness.
It wasn't required to, as it was operating out in international waters. But there was some criticism from within and outside of the company suggesting that it wasn't, that the vessel shouldn't be operating at those depths, some 2.5 miles down, to see the Titanic wreckage with passengers aboard, that it wasn't safe. And then we had this catastrophic accident last week. So more for the investigators to look at. The U.S. Coast Guard is leading the investigation. They've convened what's called a Marine Board of Investigation, which is the highest level of investigation that the Coast Guard can organize. It's a multinational effort. The Canadians, the French, the British are all involved in this because they had nationals aboard the submersible.
Gloria said, no, that's a good, y'all, are they even wearing hazmat suits while they're in there doing all that? Well, where are these remains? That's the question. It's like, where were they found? What side of the, was it in the other side of the, I have questions too. I have questions. And Olivia, that's a good point. The human remains is a very broad, keep in mind, it could literally be that there was some small, Okay, Mama, some small piece of bone fragment that was lodged in different parts of the sub. I agree. I agree.
Or because they are involved in this rescue and search and recovery operation as it evolved into over the past number of days. The salvage company says that its operations out there to bring back more debris have ended. So they apparently have what they're going to have, and they're going to try and start piecing this together to see what happened. It's not just about the cause. They're trying to determine if there should be more regulations regarding these submersibles, which are largely unregulated, particularly when they operate so far out in international waters. And again, a lot of criticism of the company, Oceangate, the CEO, the pilot, the material that this craft was made out of, which is not typical. It was carbon fiber, not steel and titanium. So again, a lot of questions, and this big development today that there are, in fact, apparently human remains that have been recovered as well. Very unlikely.
Ron,
Yes.
Alan, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed. As you say, that's all coming into us late tonight.
Some people, shout out to the person that said it could be just false hope. Ellie says, I think they found the remains in the titanium part. Yes, listen, that's what we want to know. I initially thought this was like some clickbait stuff, right? And then I realized I went into, who is it? The BBC is reporting it, CNN is reporting it, Fox, everybody's reporting it, that human remains have been found. Here is the NBC News, who is reporting it. BBC, what else? 6 minutes ago, this is ABC7.
The U.S. Coast Guard says it's likely recovered human remains from the wreckage of the Titan submersibles. Debris from the Titan has been brought to the surface from the ocean floor. Several pieces of the doomed vessel were hoisted onto a pier in Newfoundland. The Titan imploded while on an underwater excursion to the wreckage of the Titanic. All 5 people on board died. The company that owns the remote-operated vehicle that brought the debris to the surface has been working around the clock for 10 days to complete the salvage mission.
You said it was amongst the engine bay. The titanium parts were just the front end near the bells.
We want to take you out to some breaking news that we're learning now.
Here's
from the United
more
States
people
Coast Guard about
reporting it, yo.
Titan submersible that catastrophically imploded, as the Coast Guard now says they have recovered, quote, presumed human remains from the seafloor in the area of that doomed submersible. I want to put up some video from earlier today here on Live Now from Fox as they salvaged some pieces of this from the ocean floor there off the North Atlantic. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, they received debris and evidence recovered from the seafloor at the site of that Titan submersible.
That is crazy.
With the international partners, investigative agencies, the Marine Board of Investigation intends to transport the evidence aboard a U.S. Coast Guard cutter to a port in the United States where they will be able to facilitate analysis and testing. United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains that
you would think, right, Tammy, like presumed, which tells me that whatever was found was definitely not intact or recognizable. The families can legit lay their loved ones to rest. That is amazing. Well, we need absolutely, at least whatever was found, we don't even know whose they belong to. Are they going to release that? I don't know. I want the FLA guy. I don't know. Is he on? Maybe enveloped in a jacket. Glow with glow says, I thought it would be a smaller pieces. Me too. No, that's why I was like, my lack of knowledge about implosions. I honestly thought that this would be like the way people were describing implosions was that it was kind of like it's they're so small molecules, type deal that you can't even see. That's how I presumed this is what it was.
Have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident. They said in a statement, the chair of the MBI, the Marine Board of Investigation, said, quote, I am grateful for the coordinated international and interagency support to recover and preserve this vital evidence at extreme offshore distances and depths. The evidence will provide investigators from several international jurisdictions with critical insight into the cause of this tragedy. There is still a substantial amount of work to be done to understand the factors that led to the catastrophic loss of the Titan and help ensure a similar tragedy does not occur again.
Well, now they want to do regulations. I'm like, really? Regulations should have probably been done a long time ago. But I heard experts on other channels, this is not adding up. So a lot of y'all are saying that. It's like nothing's adding up. Rabbit, people were dead set on this. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like I thought it vaporized. Like That's my lack of knowledge of implosions. Yo, I'm just a little rabbit. I am not a sea expert. Shout out to my beautiful, members that are oceanographers and marine biologists and whatnot. But I just assumed that.
Again, of course, this as they remains, the presumed human remains recovered within the wreckage of the submersible. They said in that release they will use medical professionals to analyze the remains. Also on Wednesday, huge pieces of the submersible were hoisted into a Canadian pier, as visualized here on your screen, as you can see them bringing this back some hundreds of miles off the coast as they were touring the Titanic. It went missing more than a week ago.
Yes, I was under the impression that you couldn't. I guess you can regulate something. Okay, Mama, I guess you can. That's what I've heard. I've heard different things, but I mean, I don't know.
The 5 people aboard were killed during this incident. Of course, a catastrophic implosion taking place there, but now the Coast Guard saying presumed human remains found near the wreckage.
This is the Coast Guard announcing that. Keep that in mind. This is the Coast Guard announcing that.
The U.S. Coast Guard says.
Hold up, y'all. Let me go back a little bit. So that was ABC 7. And then Oceangate Presumed, this was an hour ago on the Fox Live. This is the first one that I saw. I literally jumped out of my seat when I saw this. This is so crazy, yo.
I want to take you out to some breaking news that we're learning now from the United States Coast Guard about that Titan submersible that catastrophically imploded, as the Coast Guard now says they have recovered, quote, presumed human remains from the seafloor in the area of that doomed submersible. I want to put up some video from earlier today here on Live Now from Fox as they salvaged some pieces of this from the ocean floor there off the North Atlantic. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, they received debris and evidence recovered from the seafloor at the site of that Titan submersible after consultation with the international partners, investigative agencies. The Marine Board of Investigation intends to transport the evidence aboard a U.S. Coast Guard cutter to a port in the United States where they will be able to facilitate analysis and testing. United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains that have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident. They said in a statement, the chair of the MBI, the Marine Board of Investigation, said, quote, I am grateful for the coordinated international and interagency support to recover and preserve this vital evidence at extreme offshore distances and depths. The evidence will provide investigators from several international jurisdictions with critical insight into the cause of this tragedy. There is still a substantial amount of work to be done to understand the factors that led to the catastrophic loss of the Titan and help ensure a similar tragedy does not occur again. Of course, this as they...
I don't know about you guys, but after a while, all this news just sounds the same to me. Like, they're like, they just kind of reading off of a script at this point. It just seems so scripted to me. But everybody is reporting this. So we have human remains have been found for those that are coming in. And of course they have to check them and everything, but it's presumed human remains. So I don't know if that means, I don't know exactly what the hell that means. Because it is, like somebody says, a very ambiguous thing to just kind of put out there. But
we are following some breaking news at the moment. The U.S. Coast Guard has just said presumed human remains were recovered from the Titan submersible wreckage. News Nation's Evan Lambert is following the latest. Evan, this just dropped from the Coast Guard. What do we know here?
Yeah, Blake, so we got this update from the Coast Guard about 25 minutes ago. As you said, quote, presumed human remains, they say, were found among some of the wreckage of the Titan submersible. We had seen pictures of the submersible wreckage today in Canada, offloaded onto shore in Newfoundland, Canada. And now we know, according to the Coast Guard, that human remains were among some of that wreckage. I want to put up the statement, the relevant portion of the statement from the Coast Guard. It says, in part, quote, United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains.
Here's the deal. All right. Why not allow the medical examiner to conduct the examination before saying that presumed human remains have been found? So then that way the medical examiner can determine whether these presumed human remains found are actual human remains and who they belong to. I hear you, Nadia. The window was 7-layer stick of plexiglass. That would make sense, though. That would make sense. Nothing makes sense because it's newsworthy. Presumed innocent, presumed bodies. I'm saying we, the public, will never know the truth. No, that's true. We will never know the truth. We can presume to know the truth, but we will never actually know the truth. And whatever, keep in mind that your perception is your reality. So however that lands for you, I hear you, but nothing. You couldn't go down to those steps to search for them, but within days, you're bringing up pieces. And I thought the pressure was too dangerous, even for the. I'm here. I'm there. We see each other right there. We see each other. Yes. So for those that are coming in, that makes too much sense, right, Stacy? For those that are coming in, all right. It's the Coast Guard made a statement that the United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis. They found human remains, but a medical analysis hasn't been done to determine if these are even human remains. So I don't know what, I mean, the Coast Guard is the Coast Guard, right? But like, they're very ballsy to just put that out there without even determining, are these presumed human remains or are these actual human remains? I don't know. I don't know. Yes, what you said, they should have waited. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of confusing. Shout out to Bunny, who says, kind of confusing as the Coast Guard hasn't posted anything on Twitter to confirm these reports. I haven't seen anything on Twitter at all. It's fine. I haven't seen anything on Twitter. Just take the piece and put it over there. Don't go back to your precious lives in the hands of the crackbox. It's just sad. It's, in my opinion, it's sad to just put something like that out there. And we don't really know. And what does it do? It sensationalizes things. It then allows everybody to run conspiracy theories about different things, right? I mean, do what you got to do, but these are people's lives, right? So why not check with the medical examiner and then make a statement about human bodies, or excuse me, presumed human remains
that have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident. And we do have some of the pictures of the pieces of wreckage offloaded today from a ship in Canada.
Exactly.
You can see what appears to be the nose cone, the front of the submersible that surrounds the area that would have been the porthole, also a twisted piece of the hull and some wires, potentially maybe the controls or a portion of the controls of that submersible. But again, really just within the last 20 to 30 minutes, some information that families likely have been waiting on, that human remains were discovered. We had heard from the Coast Guard that they would be especially careful in trying to find that wreckage, to be aware of any remains that were to be found. But we now know that the remains, along with the evidence, will be transported on a U.S. Coast Guard cutter from Canada to the U.S. to be part of this investigation. It's also likely that officials will try to identify the remains. No information about to whom those remains belong, but obviously families likely were waiting for some amount of information regarding their loved ones and any remains that could be recovered. The Coast Guard saying that they did so today. Blake.
Wow, incredible.
Okay,
all right, Evan Lambert,
I found the statement from the Coast Guard. They have it directly on their page. Let me show you guys. Let's go over there. So there is a statement from the U.S. Coast Guard, okay? And it basically says that the U.S. Coast Guard recovers evidence from Titan submersible. This was posted today. The U.S. Coast Guard received debris and evidence recovered from the seafloor at the site of the Titan submersible when the MV Horizon Arctic arrived at St. John's, Newfoundland, June 28th. Okay. After consultation with the international partner investigative agencies, the Marine Board of the investigation, the MBI, I keep hearing the MBI this, the MBI that, intends to transport the evidence aboard a U.S. Coast Guard cutter to port in the United States, where the MBI will be able to facilitate further analysis and testing. United States medical professionals will conduct a formal analysis of presumed human remains that have been carefully recovered within the wreckage at the site of the incident. It's the third little paragraph right there. Hey, just James. It's right there. Third paragraph. They said it. It's not on Twitter. Okay, they didn't go on Twitter. They, they have their own little communications meme. Yes. Presumed human remains. They posted it. Thank you, Cash, for the $9.99. Thank you, love. Presumed human remains. Carefully recovered. See how it said that right there, Miyu? Carefully recovered. Yeah, I didn't hear anything about remains, and this just broke like an hour ago. Literally. It's all there. It's all, but that's my question is, why would they, you would think, and again, you guys can find this on the website. It is the United States Coast Guard News website. Check them out. Just Google search it. That's what I did, and I was able to find it fairly quickly. I mean,
thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
I don't even know what to make of it. Like, this is crazy. So I seriously thought, I was like, is Fox News clickbaiting us right now, or what are they doing? Why are they doing this? But it's not. It's real. Human remains presumed. Excuse me, human remains, and I have to say presumed because that's the word that they use to describe this. Hold up. Let me see if there was other ones. Yeah, I mean, it's all there. Not a lot of, this was an hour ago from the 9 News Australia.
Good morning again. We do have a significant development, that's right, in that Titanic sub investigation. The US Coast Guard moments ago revealing that presumed human remains have now been recovered. US correspondent Jonathan Kersley is following this story for us. Jono, these remains were found among the wreckage that was brought to shore this morning.
Yeah, they were. The US Coast Guard confirming within the last hour or so that presumed human remains had been carefully recovered from the wreckage of the Titan sub, and they will now be analysed by medical professionals. It was earlier this morning in St. John's, Newfoundland, in Canada, when parts of the Oceangate Titan sub were brought back from the ocean floor onto shore and to be handed to investigators. What's not clear from the US Coast Guard statement, and this will need to be examined by medical professionals, is exactly how many human remains they are and who they belong to. It is a sad development, but a development nonetheless for the families of the 5 lives lost on board the Titan sub when it went in search of the Titanic in the Atlantic Ocean some 10 days or so ago, suffering a catastrophic implosion that claimed the lives of Oceangate CEO Stockton Rush and 4 others, tourists who had paid big money to be on board that vessel. Pieces that have been retrieved from the ocean floor could be significant for investigators. Here's what one oceanographer had to say on the Today Show earlier.
No.
Hopefully somewhere in that wreckage, in that melange of big pieces and the tiny pieces, for instance.
No, and that's a good, so I'm confused by the scientists too. Maybe it's not, that's what I'm saying, Menace. You would think, this is what I'm saying. What if they should have done, why not do a medical investigation before saying that presumed human remains have been found? Right? Like, why not do that medical investigation first before even putting that out there? Because what if they're not human? What if it's something else that caught nearby? That could very well be the case. You know, we don't know. It is tragic, absolutely. But I am confused by the science. Like, I'm just saying, you know, and shout out, yeah, James Cameron. I mean, I didn't know I learned about James Cameron a lot more other than him being the director of the Titanic. I honestly did not know everything that James Cameron has done to be able to explore the ocean. I didn't know that he had explored to the deep. He's one of the only ones that has explored the deepest side of the ocean. He talked about that too. I mean, the man has done a lot, I guess, exploration. No clue. And he even talks about how
search 4 days of search. They're searching everywhere.
How crazy this is.
Around with their hair on fire. The sub was right where it was. It was literally on the seafloor below its last known position. which is the first place you look in a search, is the last known position. You don't go running around all over the landscape with planes and trains and automobiles searching, right?
Look at that.
It was right where it was when it imploded. And I knew that's where they were going to find it. So Oceangate shouldn't have been doing what it was doing. I think that's pretty clear. I wish I had been more vocal about that, but I think I was unaware that they weren't certified. I mean, this father and son on Father's Day, you know, paid $500,000 to go down in this thing. Holy crap. You know, it's just tragic, and it's horrific, and it's unnecessary. And by the way, it's not lost on me as somebody who studied the meaning of Titanic. It's greater meaning to us, you know, historically and societally, that it's about warnings that were ignored.
Warnings that were ignored.
That ship's lying at the bottom of the ocean, not because of the nature of its steel or the nature of its compartments, but just because of bad seamanship. Search.
There
4 days of search.
I think he said it perfectly. Shout out to James Cameron. Now, Juju says even James Cameron said they would not recover remains. That's why I'm like, I'm confused by the science. I am. Your dad looks like James Cameron or actor James Wood. Okay. Welcome. Richard Branson he said he dove many times into deep water. It's the news. They will keep parts of the story to get attention for viewership. Well, they're doing a good job on that. That's for sure. First of all, it took them days to announce the implosion. And I wonder how many days it's been since they've known this. For all we know, they probably already knew this. I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm all confused. Did you become a member, my love? Thank you. Or did somebody give? I'm sorry, I don't have my other device, y'all. If you're gifting memberships, thank you so much. I'm not even able to look at the other device. Thank you, and shout out to you, and thank you for gifting memberships. Do you, or if you purchase one, thank you. I've not seen it on my end over here. Miyu says, do you want to die deep in the dark sea? Sign here. That's what it was. Bunny gifted. Thank you, Bunny. Thank you. No. They said, you know, and I can understand that the Titanic, and you know, you have, like I said, you have the pistol shrimp, not the pistol whipping shrimp, the pistol shrimp. There's a real thing. All right. The shrimp that, you know, right. They do the drive-bys and the ride along. They will get you. Those things make noise. So they were talking about how shrimp can make noise too. But just keep that in mind. Thank you. All right, Mama. Well, anyways, guys, let me see. I know, right? Look at that. Oh my God, y'all are funny. Rabbit, when the body is recovered underwater, the remains will float to the surface once released to the bottom. This would be the portion trapped within the wreckage. Wow. Do you have something to say? Do you want to scream? No. Well, what is it? Okay, it's time for me to go. I have to go because look, I got to give her some of these. Well, right. Thank you. Well, she's over here screaming in my ear. Y'all, let me tell you some update on baby Bunny. She's not only wanting to walk, she wants to run. So we are having to baby gate everything and lock everything up and all that other stuff. So yes, shout out to you. Thank you. Oh, I'm glad you're catching up, my love. Thank you. They said the bodies would have vapor. That's what I'm saying. I'm stuck on that. I thought implosion meant that the bodies would have. Well, we don't know what was collected. So there was, yes, presumed. Everybody, yes, we're right there with you on that one, the barber. We really are. We're right there. I assumed that if something imploded, it meant nothing. It turns out they found human remains here. And, you know, some of those pieces are really well intact. I mean, you see some of these wires and stuff like that. But then again, I don't know if they found the PlayStation remote. I'm just saying, like, I'm curious. What did they find? What didn't sink in? I am curious. There could be very tiny pieces. You're absolutely right. And you know what? Again, our hearts go out to those families and everything. We really don't know. We just don't know. And I feel so bad. The more I read about the 19-year-old that was in this trip to appease his father, that even kind of gets to me, just a little bit. It definitely does. Look to me at the front and the back blew off. Get prepared, Rabbit. She's about to give you. I know she's running and walking, running and walking. I saw a pic of the ocean floor. It could be fake. I don't know. I don't know. It looks more like a death faking. I don't know about that, but gotcha. Because some material fossilizes or turns into unrecognizable deposits. Thank you. Hit the like. That's interesting. That is interesting. Looks to me like the front blew out. If there was an actual implosion, they are claiming there'd be no tissue. That's what I thought. Possibly bone, but even if the chance of that is slim, I don't know. I think it means implosion happened higher. Yes, it could be. They can't find that much. Maybe they did vaporize, but the vapor landed on the pieces of the submersible they brought up. That's what we're talking about, is a potential miss. They had me thinking like it's poop. I know, right? That's where I was going in my mind. That's where I was going. I think it's an implosion. They may have found portions. I am confused too. You know what? I'm very confused. I know, Mama. Guys, I'm gonna have to head out. I want to thank everybody for coming through and making sure, please hit that like button. It does help in the algorithm. Thank you so much to everybody. Cash for your super chat. Crazy Cat Mama. Thank you so much for Bunny for gifting the membership. And shout out to you guys. Make sure you're hitting the like button. It helps in the algorithm. I want to thank everybody for coming in today and hearing the news through my channel. You guys have a great one. I gotta head out. See you guys later.